And speaking of rolling up your sleeves, it'd be good for, a lot of what the coalition does is try to educate people in the industry and connect them with their legislators and connect them with policymakers so that the two worlds come together and to cooperate. So could you give us a sense of what you've been working on over the last 3 years and what Colorado is doing to encourage entrepreneurship and private investment in these in Colorado?
Well, thank you. What we've been working on, as I say things about more than 18 months, I believe, is exactly what you are talking about, is, the modernization of Colorado's telecommunications laws. We consider them archaic. I know that Senator Scheffel has worked on this. He's the one that really came forward and said, look, it's time to modernize. When we look at the high cost support mechanisms that we have here in Colorado, because there's so many great companies here, we really don't need that anymore. And the question is what do we do with that next? And as Senator Scheffel said, if we can determine what we do with that and put it back into the infrastructure or deploying broadband in unserved or underserved areas, that's going to help move Colorado forward, not only in the Denver metro area, but we really have to focus on the rural areas. There are business owners out there too. And when you look at the rural telecommunications companies, we have to support them, and so that they can help bring the rural areas up to speed where Denver metro area is. We've also been working on this year the voice over IP bill, and that will definitely encourage more entrepreneurship. It will allow technology for more companies to be attracted to Colorado, and in turn the investment will grow jobs. I mean, all of this is about the economy and economic development, and so those are some of the concepts that we have been working on. But in Colorado, I'm just afraid that if we do not do something, we will continue to fall behind in this area, and we're already behind. And so that's our passion. The passion is the spirit of entrepreneurship, is the passion of technology. Technology changes every day. And I can relate to the stories. Everyone, if you're not on the information highway and you're not moving technology, you will be left behind. And I have a story very similar to Larry's. My mother's 82 years old, and I think about 5 years ago we got her a BlackBerry, and now she's dangerous. And now she has an iPad. So, everyone, and what we also have to realize is everything we do, technology and telecommunication crosses those sectors. Education, health, businesses, everything we do has some type of technology, and we're going to need that in Colorado to continue to move our state forward.
Just a comment on the legislative effort. I remember vividly when I met with kind of the first stakeholder and the genesis of taking on this project, and while I was excited about some of the concepts, that it was very clearly one of the warnings that came in. It's like, you realize you're weighing into the telecom world. Have you lost your mind? And that's because it's complex. In the midst of all the exciting, the entrepreneurial spirit and the technology that absolutely infuses this whole area, there's some complex issues. There's subsidies at stake that need to be dealt with. There's issues like emergency, the 911 issue in Colorado, and I see we've got some other legislators that have come in. We've got topography issues. We've got these enormous mountains we've got to deal with, and which is why the effort last year was comprehensive. It was a very lengthy bill, and I see Representative Murray has joined us, who was part and parcel of that effort last year. It was very complex. It was really designed to deal with all the issues, and that was not able to be successful for various reasons. It was a lot to take on, and so the project, as Representative Williams has said, this year has been to kind of pare that down in bite size, which is why we're taking on the voice over IP element. But I think the important thing to know, and to be in the policy business, one must be very patient and be willing to be incremental, and that's really the goal. The interests that are worth pursuing are override everything. The strength of the industry and the opportunity that is there overrides the difficulties that need to be overcome. And so they are there, and they continue to be there. but it is well worth the effort. The economic engine that is behind this industry is enormous, and the growth in jobs in the economy, and not just but good jobs. I mean, this is what Colorado citizens, this is what we as policymakers really need to be seeking after. And so, notwithstanding the difficulties and the complications, and anybody who here is working on the project knows that it's worth the hard work. And so the effort continues, and I look forward to success.
Well, Larry, I want to turn to you for a second. You know, considering what they said, you know, from a principled standpoint, you worked at the local, state level, national, international levels. From a principled standpoint, what should you know, regulators, policymakers, and entrepreneurs be thinking about as it relates to the internet? How should they guide their decision making in order to make innovation happen as quickly as possible and to spur that?
So we had we took a Hippocratic oath, which is first do no harm. What we were trying to do in Washington from 93 to 97, 99, I guess really, everything that the senator and the representative said strikes a chord with me. The Cable Act took 3 years. The 96 Telecom Act, we started literally from 1993, and the normal vested interests come in and say the normal things about, well, if you change things, it's going to make it worse for me. And what we basically said, yes, but it's going to make it better for the rest of the world. There's always going to be some dislocation. And what we tried to do with regard to our regulatory philosophy was try to do things that wasn't going to slow down innovators. So I've been blessed. I grew up in New York City, but I spent a lot of my life out in the Valley. And so I got to know people who were moving things. And as fast as we've moved in the last 20, the next 5 years, I will guarantee you right now, the next 5 years in technology innovation will be more exciting and more innovative than the last 20 years have been combined. We're just at the cusp where these things are happening. We're finally getting to a place where people have truly broadband networks. And so the things we try to do were first do no harm, and then to bring more people into the discussion. So when I started doing, I worked a lot on Lifeline and link-up issues in Congress because my then boss in the 80s was a congressman named Mickey Leland, whose district was 40% black, 40% Latino, 20% Anglo. And about a third of his Latino and about a quarter of his black constituents didn't even have basic telephone service. And he saw his opportunity to do great things for the nation, but also to bring people who were never on the grid onto the grid. And if you look at how the IP revolution has changed, we now have almost every person in this country now has a telephone. That wasn't the scenario when I was working on Capitol Hill. I'm the guy who came up with the term digital divide, working with President Clinton, because most black people, most brown people, low-income people, and senior citizens weren't on the internet. Well, that has changed because we brought the prices down, because we have devices like this, and so people who weren't going to use a laptop or use a desktop feel perfectly comfortable using a mobile device. So the things we were talking about, inclusion, access, making sure that it was ubiquitous, and using it for the right purposes. Not everybody in this country is going to go to Harvard or go to Stanford, University of Colorado. But because of these innovations, everybody in this country can take a course at Harvard or monitor a course at Harvard or MIT or University of Colorado because of things like Coursera. Bill Gates' kids use something called Khan Academy. If you've never seen Khan Academy, it's 3,500 videos that teach you everything from basic math to how to read a balance sheet to what the deficit crisis is all about. 10-minute videos, easily explained. If you watch them, you will come away informed from going to a Khan Academy. Bill Gates' kids use it because it's free, but any kid in Colorado can use it free if they have access to the internet. That's what you want to do with technology, and that's what you want to do with legislation. You want to democratize this. You want to make it so it's easy. The networks are smarter and faster so that we can be dumber. The reality is you don't have, all of us who ended in age in the 80s, you kind of felt like you had to www.what. Well, now you just point to a graphic and it takes you to where you want to go. It's been enabled because really smart people want to have more people involved in this. And policymakers, I think the rules that they need to be looking at are, is it going to create jobs? Is it going to be a democratizing with a small d, allowing more people onto the network? Is it going to build our educational resources? Is it going to allow every person in this state to have the benefit of this, and instead of only some? And there will be some casualties. The reality is when you change legislation, there are winners and losers. But we can't. When we moved from buggies with horses to automobiles, there were some dislocations. but it built great cities and it built a great nation. We built a highway system, and I think we're better off for it. The highway system of the 21st century, the ports of the 21st century, are our broadband infrastructure. And our broadband infrastructure isn't going to be built on the regulatory policies we have today. That's the philosophy we took, and that's the philosophy I think we have to take. We can't do harm to our citizens by holding on to vestigial legislation and regulations that aren't going to port into the 21st century.